Okay, welcome back. This is a top 10 list. Now, basically, a lot of people are saying, I kind of agree with them, that Dan Slott needs to leave Amazing Spider-Man. And I have picked out 10 writers with a couple honorable mentions of writers who could succeed him on Amazing Spider-Man. Because I think for everybody else, his time is up. He's been the title for nearly 10 years, and I'm counting the time when he was part of one of those rotating writers from issues 545 through 647. He was on these issues, and I do count that as part of sort of his run, even though regularly he started with issue 648, but officially it was 545. Now, the couple hour mentions basically are. First, of course, is Marv Wolfman, the guy known for creating characters like Blade, created the characters from New Teen Titans like Cyborg, Raven, and Starfire. Yeah, this guy will be a great choice, and plus he has written amazing. He has written Amazing Spider-Man in the past, and he has written Spider-Man for, thanks to his run on Marvel Team Up, and I just think he's a good writer. I mean, a lot of people probably would not necessarily disagree with me. I mean, the stuff he written for Marvel Team was back really good, and I definitely think he'd be good enough to succeed on Amazing Spider-Man, but I highly doubt he would do it because he's had some disagreements with Marvel in the last 15 years. He's had disagreements with them a lot, but he still works for DC, and he does a lot of good stuff for them. Okay, and the other honorable mention, which did not make my list, but I do think he should at some point write Amazing Spider-Man. He has written Spider-Man past like Marv Wolfman, only on Marvel Team Up. This guy wrote a bunch of good issues. Marvel Team. If you read Marvel Team Up, I mean, he writes a good chunk of that series, and his issues are really good, really enjoyable team ups. Him writing Amazing Spider-Man, he would be a terrific choice, especially since this guy spent 16 years writing Kenny X-Men. So why can't he have like a long run on Amazing Spider-Man? I'm sure he's probably plenty of ideas. But yeah, those are my 2 honorable mentions. Now for the top 10. Alright, now, my number 10 writer is, and this would be kind of surprising for some people because this guy is usually probably number 1 on a lot of people's list, Christos Gage, a guy who likes to co-write with Dan Slott. Why do I have him this on the list? Because there's a lot of other good writers who could do it too. Now, yes, Christos Gage is a good writer himself, and he's written Spider-Man in the past with Dan Slott. And as far as I know, he hasn't done that much writing Spider-Man by himself. That's why I guess even though he could succeed Dan Slott on the book, but he doesn't have enough experience writing Spider-Man by himself. That's why he's number 10 on the list. But he is a good writer, no less. Alright, number 9. The creator of Swamp Thing and Wolverine, Len Wein. He's had a brief run on Amazing Spider-Man. I mean, his run was actually pretty good. I wouldn't necessarily call it bad, but I do think this guy knows how to write a character by himself without another writer co-writing with him.
As soon as I get my clothes changed, we'll go, right? That doesn't matter if you dress up, that's fine.
Okay. Alright. Anyways. Sorry for the interruption. Yeah, he would definitely be a good choice to succeed Dan Slott to write the book. Because he has written Spider-Man in the past, so yeah. So he has experience. I can't necessarily think of any characters he created, but I definitely think this guy would be perfect. He would want one of the good writers to succeed, Dan Slott. Number 8. Denny O'Neil. The guy who brought back the burglar and had him die of a heart attack. Yes. The guy who's known for writing Bat books over the course of past 40 years. Basically, he would be definitely good enough to succeed Dan Slott. Despite the fact some of the stories that came after issue 200 are a bit weird, if you've read those issues, but he's an enjoyable writer to read when you read how he writes characters. He writes characters to be very likable and very interesting to read. That's why if you ever read his Batman run, you would enjoy yourself tremendously. And this is the guy who brought back Batman to its dark roots. I'm not necessarily saying that Spider-Man should be brought to a darker path, but basically he should bring some of Spider-Man's older roots. Like, maybe he could hook Peter Parker and Mary Jane back up. Who knows? Who knows what he can do? Alright. Number 7. The guy who writes Silk and Spidey and Venom Space Knight. Robbie Thompson, who also happens to be writer of the show Supernatural. I definitely think this guy also, he does fit the bill because he knows how to write Spider-Man. I mean, he writes Spidey really well. I can't see why this guy can't write Amazing Spider-Man, despite the fact this will be his 4th title he's writing. Because if you look at a lot of the titles that are published by Marvel Comics, like you see the same writer on at least several books. Now, in case you're wondering why isn't before I move on to my next one, why isn't Brian Michael Bendis on this list? Despite the fact this is one of the titles that this is one of the characters he's been recommended probably for years to write. Because the guy's got too much on his plate. The guy's writing like 4 titles. The guy's writing Spider-Man, the Miles Morales one. He's writing Guardians of the Galaxy. He's writing Invincible Iron Man, and soon to come out International Iron Man. So he does not need a 5th title. But I do recommend maybe a miniseries. He can do a miniseries with Peter. Nothing wrong with that. So he's a good writer. He would be a good choice, but the guy got too much on his plate. That's the only reason why he didn't make the list. That's in case anybody asked about that. Alright. Number 6. Now this probably wouldn't surprise some people. Because this is probably one guy they probably also like to succeed Dan Slott on Amazing Experiment. Mark Waid. Yes, Mark Waid. Also as Mark Magic Waid, as some people I've heard some people call him. The guy who wrote Daredevil for 4 years. He did a tremendous run on Daredevil. Now the guy's really running Black Widow. He's already writing all new, all different Avengers. I definitely think this guy would fit the bill. I mean, he could bring back old Spider-Man villains. Something Dan Slott doesn't like doing very much. It's like, even though Slott himself is a Spider-Man fan, he doesn't like bringing back the villains, the classic villains. He likes using his own villains or bringing his own supporting cast, to say the least. Mark Waid will dig up the old stuff and make it interesting. That's one thing he was good for. That was one thing he was good at Daredevil, besides doing very good writing. Besides interesting storytelling on Daredevil, the guy knew how to write Daredevil competently and not have basically most of the supporting cast be buffoons whenever he acts completely out of character. Something Dan Slott missed out when he was doing Superior Spider-Man, and yet when Superior Iron Man came out, people thought that maybe Tom Taylor would do the same thing. Nope, Tom Taylor didn't do anything here. Though Tom Taylor could do it, but he's just didn't make my list. And the guy's got 2 titles he's worried about. I mean, the guy is writing Green Lantern Corps Edge of Oblivion, and he's also writing all new Wolverine. He could do it, but didn't exactly make my list. So he didn't exactly come up. I didn't come up until I made this video. Okay, number 5. We're at the halfway point. Past the halfway point now. Greg Rucka. Even this guy doesn't have much experience writing Spider-Man. He does. He wrote an issue of Avenging Spider-Man, and he co-wrote it with Mark Waid. He wrote it very interestingly, and plus he wrote Spider-Man when he was on during his very awesome run on Punisher. So this is a guy who can definitely do it. We can make Spider-Man very interesting, just like other writers can, and can't think of anything else. Also mention about Mark Waid. He did create one of the most least interesting villains that Spider-Man's ever had in the last 20 years. The Red Vulture. Despite the fact he's the 4th Vulture, I call him Red Vulture because the previous Vultures wore green suits. Green, outfits, not red. And they weren't cannibals. Yep. And thank you, Greg Rucka. And this is one thing I'm happy Greg Rucka did. He took that character Mark Waid created, and he killed him off in his Punisher title. Thank you, Greg Rucka. That's one reason why I would like him to write it. Because he killed off one of my most least interesting villains. Okay? Number 4, and so far, the only woman I could think of who could succeed Dan Slott on Amazing Experiment. Despite the fact I had nothing against this woman at all. I never met her, but I love her work that she's done Captain Marvel. And she's also written Spider-Man before. Go figure. She has. Now, her only experience is writing a couple issues of Avenging Spider-Man. But if you read these issues, you would read awesome, an awesome two-parter, and I definitely think she could definitely hold her own on Amazing Experiment. I mean, this woman wrote Captain Marv for over 2 years, and I definitely think she could definitely hold her own writing doing like maybe 2 or 3 year run on Amazing Experiment. She can do it. I mean, last time I checked, you don't have to have every single writer who writes Amazing Experiment be male. I mean, yes, this title is written by men. Since Stan Lee came up with this title back in the 60s, it's like an unofficial rule when it comes to Marvel Comics that Amazing Experiment has to be written by a guy. I mean, she could be the first woman to do it. I'll definitely read it. I'll definitely buy it if I get a chance to. I'm sure a lot of people might agree or disagree with me on this. Okay? Alright, moving on. That was number 4. Number 3, Zeb Wells. This guy has written Amazing Experiment, and he wrote the first 5 issues of Avenging Spider-Man. Wow, this guy is such a good Spider-Man writer. And I keep wondering, why does this guy do a regular run on Amazing Spider-Man? The guy is that dang good. And this is also a guy who also wrote Savage Wolverine. Yeah. And he writes, even though he would introduce some martial arts stuff into Amazing Spider-Man, but I would definitely read it. And this guy would also begin with the write a Shang-Chi series if Marvel gave it one. But I definitely think this guy definitely fit the bill if he wanted to give like a martial arts aspect to Amazing Spider-Man. But yeah, competent writer. And number 2, before I get to my number 1, and this is one I think a lot of people were surprised with. Gerry Conway, even though he just came back to do that 5-part Spiral story that came when Secret Wars was coming out, yes, this guy will definitely do it. I mean, this guy originally wrote Spider-Man back in the 70s for 4 years. 4 years. 4 years. If you read his run, which covers issues like 111 to like nearly like 150, this guy, during his run, created the freaking Punisher and the Jackal. No, I don't think necessarily he would bring back any clones, but I definitely think he'll make Spider-Man interesting again. I mean, this guy succeeded Stan Lee on the book. I mean, yes, Stan Lee, even though he took over full time after Stan Lee left, I mean, this guy basically, even though Stan Lee had Roy Thomas fill in for him, but Stan Lee was still the writer of the book up until Gerry Conway took over. But yeah, this guy would definitely do it. And even though the guy is writing Carnage and he's going to be writing Firestorm, even though his Firestorm story on Legends of Tomorrow miniseries is coming out soon, he would definitely do it. And I definitely recommend him do it. And my number 1 writer who succeeded Dan Slott on Amazing Spider-Man is Peter David. Yes, this guy has got a ton of experience writing Spider-Man. He wrote the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man series, possibly one of the best Spider-Man series in years. And plus, this guy also wrote one of the greatest Spider-Man stories ever told, The Death of Gene D. Wolfe. Yes. And I think a lot of people agree with me on this, but being my number 1 choice, that might be disagreeing some people on this one. But I definitely recommend I definitely recommend him do it. Even though the only title he's writing is Spider-Man 2099, but I definitely think he could do it. And yeah, I don't think he's written Amazing Spider-Man before, but he has written a Spider-Man title. He's written 2 of them. Yeah, 2. One, he had a long run, and that was Peter Parker. He was in the book for like 2 or 3 years, and he did Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Plus, the guy is writing another Spider-Man. You know, he's writing Spider-Man 29 now. He can do 2 titles. He has proven in the past he can write 2 titles and write it to be awesome. I mean, 2 years ago, he was doing both Spider-Man 29 and All New X Factor. So there's nothing says he can't do it. Okay, those are my top 10. Right, okay. So that is it for my top 10 writers who could succeed Dan Slott on the Amazing Spider-Man title. Leave your top 10 down below in the comments below. Be sure to thumbs up this video and subscribe to my channel. Okay? Until my next video, see you there. Bye.